In this video, we're going to be talking about how to respond to a notice that you receive from the IRS. In my last video, we talked about 5 steps you need to take when you receive a notice or letter from the IRS, and in this video, we'll talk about how to do that. My name's Kip Lewis. I'm a CPA, I have my master's degree in accountancy, and I spend a lot of time talking to the IRS on the phone and responding to their notices and letters. So I'm going to share my knowledge with you. Let's get to the tip. First, we're going to cover what should go in the letter, and then we'll talk about formatting. You need to start the letter with a very respectful tone. Dear Sir or Madam, or to whom it may concern, are both appropriate. And then that first paragraph, it's a pretty important one. Well, it's one of 2, so, short letter. But the 2 points that you need to have in it are, you need to tell them why you're writing to them and that you acknowledge the receipt of the notice that you got. For example, I am writing regarding notice CP 2000 dated January 3rd, 2020. And I acknowledge the receipt of this notice. This does 2 things for you. It's letting them know exactly why you're talking to them, why you wrote them a letter, and you're acknowledging that you received your notice. It doesn't mean that you agree with them. You're not saying, I agree with what you've said. You're also not saying, you guys are dumb, but you're acknowledging that you've received it. And so by doing that, you're going to retain some of the rights that you have going forward as you continue to work with the IRS through whatever issue there is. The final part of the first paragraph should be something like, I'm attaching a copy of this notice for your convenience. And then make sure you send a copy of the notice with your letter. In your notice, there's going to be a deadline. They're going to say, we expect a response by this date. And that's the whole purpose of this letter, is to ask for more time than they initially gave you. Now, the second paragraph is probably the more important paragraph. It's where you're going to say something like, I respectfully request additional time to gather the documents, forms, and information that you've requested. And so it should give you more time to gather the documents, the forms, and the information that they've asked for, or it will give you time to find someone that can gather those documents for you. And so you'll want to close your letter with something like, respectfully submitted, or with warm regards, and then sign your name. And that's your whole letter. That's the meat, that's the cheese, that's the whole sandwich. Now let's talk about formatting. You're going to want to format this like a business letter. Top left is going to be where it's going to. There's usually going to be a very specific address that the IRS wants you to respond. Probably Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, and then location. Pretty simple, pretty standard. On the right-hand side of the notice that you received, there's going to be a bunch of information that you're going to want to mimic. Pretty much you can just copy and paste it. It's going to have the notice or letter number, like CP 2000 or letter 525 are some common ones. It's going to have your name or the name of the entity that's getting the notice. It's going to have the tax ID number or your social security number. It'll have the form, such as 1040, 1120S. It'll have the tax year. And those are the most important things that you need to put up there. So right off the bat, they see what you're responding to. Then down at the bottom, you're going to want to make sure that you put an area for attachments. And really the only attachment you're going to need for this letter is the letter that they sent you. Make a copy, send it in with your letter. That shows them this is the letter you gave me, this is the letter that I'm responding with, and it kind of helps them to put the pieces together. This applies for if it's for you as an individual, if you're a business owner and it's your business that received a notice, whoever it is, the principles still apply. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and the formatting, they're all the same, whether it's a business or an individual doing it. Another suggestion is you can send it through snail mail, and if you do, make sure you send it certified. That way you have documented proof that they received your letter. Another option is to fax it. Not all notices will give you the option to fax, but if they do, I highly suggest you use it. That way they'll get your response back that very same day, and whatever they respond back to you with, it'll be a lot faster. And so faxing it is probably the best option. That's the option that I choose more often than not. And finally, if you don't want to write a letter, if you're better on the phone, just call the phone number. Again, not all IRS notices will have a phone number, but I'd say 95% of them do. And so calling that number, explaining who you are, and they'll ask you very specific questions. They want to know your social, they want to know your name, they want to know what notice you received, and they'll be able to kind of talk it over with you. And then they can put it into their computer system that, hey, they called, they asked for more time, and that works too. Well, there you have it, my time-tested approach to responding to the IRS. I hope you found value in it, and if you did, I encourage you to ring that bell and subscribe, and keep an eye out for more tax tips and tools to help you answer the questions you didn't know you had.